Welcome, everyone, to Seriously Social Podcast brought to you by Socially In. I believe this is episode number 22, and you have
Yes,
your host,
sir.
Lorenzo Johnson, Kosha Kacadia, here, and we're ready to break down the latest of what's happening in the world of social media, bring to you the latest developments. Obviously, the biggest topic of concern right now is TikTok and the looming ban across the nation. And we got some deep insights ready for you all today. And without further ado, we're not going to keep the intro too long. We're going to jump right into it. How you doing, my man Lorenzo? What's been going on?
Man, I'm doing great. Spartan Dogs, we ready to come into the tournament. Kick the door open, bro. We got so lucky. We got so lucky, man. I don't know how we messed around and got a number 9 seed. But now I'm pumped, man. I'm in a good mood. I'll take it. I can't wait for 9:15 tomorrow. You know, this is my favorite time of year, man. So yeah, I'm in a great mood today. How you doing today?
It's going well. The first quarter of 2024 is almost literally over. I really can't believe how
Flew
fast
by.
it has gone by, right? But yeah, March Madness is looming right around the corner. Believe the women's brackets are officially out. We here at Socially and every year we have our own little internal bracket tournament that we love to play along with our team members. So, we're obviously looking forward to that. But yeah, a lot of exciting times, right? Social media, a lot of crazy developments, sports world, it's fast paced, moving as quick as ever. And I think all in all, just a lot of things have happened over the last quarter that we're excited about. And now as we look for the rest of 2024 and really what's been happening, it's exciting, right? Business is fun and, things ups and downs, left and right. So I've been talking to a lot of people about, how really life's journey is unique like that. But no, it's been
Yep.
going well. We're fascinated. We're excited. Just looking forward to seeing, all of the different opportunities that come up this year.
Yeah, man, it's Q1's done. Q2's about to be done and in no
True.
time. I mean, you're about to be out for a couple of weeks and things like that. So man, it's crazy how fast time is just absolutely flying by. And it reminds me of something that we've been talking internally about, and I think it's important for everyone, and it's the importance of being intentional in this year. um, Understanding we've already talked about how budgets are shrinking and all of these different things. And one thing that we've been talking intentional, doing things on purpose, doing things strategically. Those are some of the words that we're using internally this year.
Yeah, I agree. The biggest thing that I would tell people, or the most unique takeaway right now that I would give is, we set out the year with a plan, right? We had a plan. We have these different time increments that, we essentially judge ourselves by. And that first quarter essentially is done. But just like I used the sports analogy, the game isn't over yet. You still got 3 quarters. That doesn't mean you have to use the same game plan. Maybe Q1 didn't go according to plan. Maybe things didn't go
Yes.
well. Pivot, look at your strategy, look at your game plan. You still got 3 more quarters to go, and there's a lot of opportunity out here. And we're going to dive into some of it today, especially in the realm of marketing. So don't stick to what's not working. If it's not working, switch it up. And if it is working, you still got 3 more quarters to see, what you can do with that. So
As you were talking, it reminded me of a video that it gives me goosebumps every single time I see it. It inspires me every time. Everyone has kind of one of those videos, but there's a
mhm.
viral video of a young man that gets interviewed after a high school football game, and he's like, "I ain't gonna lie, they had us in the first half." And as you were talking about that, it just kind of reminded me of that of his testimony of what they went through. But again, like you mentioned, man, we're not there yet, y'all. No matter what happened. I mean, to be honest with you, Q1 isn't even finished yet, y'all. How you
Really.
going to end this quarter strong? How you going to set yourself up for a strong Q2? And like you said, Coach, man, we got 3 more quarters to go. So hopefully, this podcast is going to give you some tools and some ammo and things to really kickstart the rest of you guys' year.
100%. And let's just jump into it, right? We've already
Yeah, what we
alluded
getting into today, man?
alluded to it a little bit at the beginning, but I like to hit, the hottest topic right out the gate, right? So the TikTok ban. It's looming. If you look at any news outlet, any media outlet, it's probably one of the top articles that people are talking about. And obviously for the right reasons, right? TikTok is a behemoth when it's come to how it's impacted culture, especially in the last 2 or 3 years. And people are really worried, right? There's a lot of opportunity that's been presented by TikTok, whether you're an influencer, an individual creator, a business, even the Fortune 500 brands. And a lot of people are concerned with what the outlook of TikTok really
Yeah.
looks like, right? The Congress just passed, or the House of Representatives just passed the bill. It still has to go through Congress. We've even heard the rumors of if Biden is reelected and still in office, that he is willing to sign it into legislation. Trump has expressed concerns that, if he's into office, he doesn't want to sign it into legislation anymore. So it's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of unknowns. And a lot of people are one way or another. A lot of people are right in the middle. But I guess that's the perfect place to get started. What are just
It
your
is.
high initial thoughts, before we dive deeper into this?
uh, it's obviously something that we're following and monitoring, and it's interesting. But what a lot of people don't know, if you're not in this space and you're just in the general public, I mean, Kosho, how many times do we hear this? it's
Every
it's
day.
dude, every 6 months it's something coming. Now, again, is this one of the more serious kind of next steps and things that's happened? Absolutely. But the first thing is, it seems like it's one of those things we're going to keep hearing about it. We're going to keep hearing about it. What are we doing with it? I've had a lot of people recently kind of asked about that, and I've kind of given this type of thought to it. There's a few ways you can look at it. Number one, I always think that it is proper to prepare for a plan B. What I've been telling people is, especially if you are an organization that is making a significant amount of money and revenue on TikTok, it's one of your platforms that's bringing in revenue and things like that. I do think it's appropriate to be considering and thinking about your plan B, and we can kind of talk through what we're thinking for that. But I would never think it's a bad idea to be thinking about plan B. Is there another place to take your resources, duplicate them? Is your audience another place to reuse these type of resources? I never think that's a bad idea, number one. So the second thought to that is that if this is going to encourage people to start to diversify their platform usage and things like that, I also think that's kind of a positive. My last thought is that realistically, do I think it's actually going to go through and things like that? I don't. Um, don't I don't see it going through for a few different reasons. I don't see it going through because of the way that everything is kind of framed. So what's kind of interesting about this is that they're not actually saying, and what this bill is actually calling for everybody who hasn't reading is, it's not calling for the dismantling of TikTok as a platform or anything. It's actually calling for the sale of TikTok essentially for it. That right there to me complicates things, because there's a difference between saying you can keep ownership of your platform and we just want you to change these features and some of those different things, and then saying that we want you to shift and completely just sell your platform. Because say TikTok, for example, says, okay, we'll agree to sell the platform. Well, then again, TikTok ain't going nowhere. So it's some of those things that make me think that realistically nothing's going to happen. But is there a chance, TikTok doesn't agree to sell, and then, like you mentioned, Biden gets back in office. I know that's some of the things that he says. I think that the only way that it's going to come to pass personally is if Biden was to actually write it into law. I don't think the Senate personally will pass it. So those are some of my very, very high level thoughts. I was trying to keep it high level before I kind of get into some of those nitty things. What are you thinking high level?
It's a great topic, right? And if I can answer with the most clear cut, it's going to be I don't know. Now, that's not very helpful to people, right? So let me allude to that a little bit better and give better context. So as it passed to the House of Representatives, it was strong on both sides that they really wanted to ban TikTok here in the U.S. And because of that, you're right. But as it goes into Senate, as it goes into, if it gets past that point, it goes into the presidential office. There's still a lot of, looming thoughts, because the Senate, I don't believe, is as clear cut, and will just push it through, like you mentioned. So
Mhm.
yes, even if it does get all the way to that point, it really is then going to come ultimately down to the election. And obviously, the election is like, the biggest topic that's going on right now, right? So we're not going to get too deep into the election itself. That's another story for a different day. But my thought process around it is, yes, let's say one, it does happen. It's still not right around the corner or right upon the horizon just quite yet, right? There's still opportunity. Utilize it while you can. Take advantage of every single day you get, that it's still available for us, and make sure that you're using those opportunities to impact. Like you said, there's other platforms, and there's ways you can utilize TikTok to impact even those other platforms and the brand
Right,
itself. So
right.
let's just say that happens, and it does. The second thing to that is if it does get banned, and there are some hiccups with, you're right, that if ultimately the bill itself says if it's sold to a US entity and it's controlled by US controlling interests, then there is some wiggle room and leeway around that. But then there is the question of, will the Chinese government even allow the sale of, that component of ByteDance and
Right.
TikTok to a US company at the end of the day. So all of that gets a little bit over our head, gets into politics. It's a lot deeper than, face value. But let's just say it gets banned. What's going to happen? Well, the number one thing as marketers, as business owners, as somebody who's leveraging TikTok for the upside of it, the good news is there's always going to be somewhere that the attention gets reverted to, whether it's back to
100%.
Instagram and what all of the things that it's doing, what happened with X.com and threads, and like there's some sort of correlation, right? Maybe it's YouTube Shorts that gets the impact. Maybe Facebook Reels starts to boom all over again. And so we don't know. Maybe it's a completely new player that take picks off of the momentum of TikTok and
Mhm.
is US controlling and they're able to kickstart something. I don't know. I can't predict that, but what I can predict is the attention will revert one way or another. And as marketers, as savvy business owners, you want to follow that attention and then take advantage of those opportunities. Let's say it
Definitely.
doesn't end. Well, obviously, there's a few parts of today's conversation of still the opportunities that we believe exist on TikTok, and we're
Mhm.
happy to and dive deeper into those as well. But let's just stick on the topic of it being banned. The number one thing is attention when it comes to building brand and at the end of the day, the bottom line revenue and sales. And one way or another, that attention isn't going to fade. The internet is the internet. People are accustomed to utilizing it. So I would say just be weary of where that attention is going. Maybe there's some high level initial talks of where people are starting to leverage other platforms, just like I mentioned, because they know this thing with TikTok is probably something can happen in the future. So long story short, long-winded answer essentially, but follow the attention. There's going to be opportunity. TikTok is a beast, but there's many other platforms that still exist out there that are mature enough to where if you move and you're strategically tactical, you'll still reap the benefits and the opportunities from it. So that's my 2 cents essentially on the TikTok ban. I personally, as a consumer, love TikTok, have learned a lot from it itself, the entertainment that it brings, the value that it brings. And I believe that it will be some sort of a little bit of an injustice if it comes down to that. But I truly understand the concerns of the US
Mhm.
government, why they're wanting to move forward with these conversations. Whether it's still here or not, I will utilize it while I can. But we're watching very closely to see where the attention is adapting.
Yeah. I mean, and it's funny. I think you said something. You said one sentence that summed up everything that I had also said. And you're 100% right, man. It's we don't know. All we can do is do our diligence. Try to be in the room, listen to the conversations, and then advise kind of appropriately on different things from there. Which we will continue to do. So we'll continue to monitor this. Again, we'll continue to stay in the loop on this, and we'll continue to say, hey, this is what we're seeing, and this is what we're recommending for our top clients. This is what we're recommending for advertisers. Again, who have generated a good amount of business on TikTok. And here's some diversification strategies that we're also recommending. So it's a topic that, again, we won't be talking about a lot and, or I guess, often, but when appropriate, we'll be bringing this back up. So please continue to stay tuned. As we continue to get big updates about this, we'll continue to say, hey, let's go ahead and include another section and update you guys about what's going on with TikTok. But as of right now, like Kosho mentioned, we are moving forward. We are pressing forward. I mean, in fact, some of our team just got off on a call with TikTok last week about some new
Yep.
campaigns and some new super exciting initiatives that they're having. So if that gives you again any indication of kind of how we think and how we're pushing forward, we're rocking and rolling and moving forward with it as if it's going to be here. Again, there are case by case basis where we're absolutely talking about plan Bs, plan Cs, even in some cases. And again, we'd love to have that conversation if and when appropriate.
Yeah. And for those that are like, man, y'all are in the space, y'all are experts. Like, what do you mean you don't know what's happening? Like Lorenzo said, we literally had a conversation. Like we're TikTok partners. We work very closely with TikTok. We're always looking at those latest
Mhm.
developments. Right? And we literally had a conversation, and it was the day of the actual vote in the House of Representatives. And TikTok was talking to us about the creative exchange, which we'll actually get into here momentarily.
Yep.
And they literally started the kickoff with a joke of, I believe the United States is voting if we're going to be allowed today or not. And I was like, that it was so funny. Even TikTok does not know, right? It's like obviously there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of different
Yep.
entities involved, a lot of different individuals involved, and all we can do is, like I said, stay up to date on the latest developments, keep everybody here informed on what's happening, take advantage of those opportunities. But you're right, we're going to push forward, and we'll see what the outcome ultimately is. But I'm still optimistic about the future and all of the opportunities. So full steam ahead in my eyes.
100%.
Cool. All right, let's jump into the next thing. So the TikTok ban, we've talked about it. Perfect difference. I mean, perfect segue to ultimately hop into social commerce. And man, how so many different developments is happening in the world of social. And we've even talked about this in between in small aspects on a few previous episodes. But let's focus a few minutes here on strictly social commerce and what's happening. First and foremost, the most amount of things ever purchased on social media happened last year, right? Each year that continues to grow. Each year, brands and businesses are looking at ways to become more digital, more direct to consumer, more direct purchase intent. And the social platforms have quickly adapted to that as well, right? TikTok Shop is a blooming force. I mean, I'm sure everybody's heard of Temu. I'm sure I know there's a little bit
I
of
was gonna say, I say Timu, but I don't know how to say it.
but it's blown up, right? Like literally, I cannot find anyone, my mom, my wife included, anybody. They're like, I just bought something off Temu.
Hmm.
I'm like, that's insane, right? So that's one aspect. Meta itself is optimizing its algorithm and the campaigns and the structure of promoting products drastically to where they're starting to allow a lot more features of direct purchase intent. And one of the more recent developments, Instagram themselves have now started testing directly applying promo codes into the advertising campaigns that allow purchases, right? So,
Yep.
alluding to all of that, the big statement is social commerce is crushing it. People are thriving and winning, and even individuals now are being able to leverage these products and these gateways through the social platforms to allow themselves to earn money as well. Hence, referring back to the creative exchange, which we'll talk about. But let's just talk about social commerce in general. Have
Yeah.
you bought anything recently from and that you bought from social media, or are you still the go directly to Amazon type of guy, going to a store? What have you been doing?
Yeah, so personally, I'm not a buy through ads kind of guy. That's just I don't know why. I don't like to click on it. I just don't buy. I don't buy that way. Again, I don't necessarily know why. I am the person that will open up my browser and go and do it. I don't know if I just don't like giving the satisfaction of it.
Hmm.
I'm not sure. I don't know what my reasoning behind it is. But there's a few thoughts that I had. The first one is, I remember I have purchased the most social purchase I've done is actually on YouTube.
Okay.
YouTube shopping has
Hmm.
actually converted me much more than these other platforms. I don't know why. I think maybe it's because when I'm on social like TikTok and things, I'm not in a buying mood no matter what. I can see the best watch, I can see something, I can see it look cool, and I'm just like, looks cool, keep on going. See new shoes, I just keep on going. Whereas when I'm in YouTube, I'm in more of a mental like, I'm going to be in this space doing whatever I'm doing on YouTube for a little bit. And so I think I kind of maybe give myself more permission to kind of derail and kind of shop and buy and do different things like that. I'm not quite sure. But I do find it interesting that a lot of these platforms are doing what YouTube has been doing for a while. YouTube has been doing social commerce and doing it very well for a couple of years now. So it is great to start to see TikTok and IG and Meta start to get into some of those same features and different things like that. The thing that I am starting to get a ton of are the Instagram ads with promo codes. It's like I don't know what's going on with my algorithm, but I am just getting blown up. And I think part of it is I'm very happy to announce I'm expecting a child here in a few
Congratulations. Yeah.
months. Thank you, man. Thank you. And I'm just getting blown up with baby stuff and different things like that. So I think that maybe part of it is I'm in the buying mode,
Yeah.
being a new and expecting father and different things like that. But I am starting to get a lot more of that. Again, I don't know why it is, but Instagram ads are what are starting to hit me a ton.
I've seen it too. And, to Lorenzo's point, there are definitely a lot of individuals that when they're buying, you're right, whether if it's an ad, if it doesn't seem natural, it throws you off and you're likely not to purchase. And that's still real. But going back to your point of, YouTube ads have done it, very well for, quite some time now. It really goes back to the ecosystem of Google and Google Shopping. And I personally have never
True,
really bought anything like through Google Shopping directly, but we
true.
all know, and the data speaks for itself, how big of a, behemoth Google has been in that shopping realm for a long time. And now going back to YouTube and the perfect segue of it, it
Great point.
integrated YouTube ads and its platform very, very well. That I think they were very quickly able to reap those advantages of social commerce. And you're right, now the social platforms, they have all the attention, they have all of the users, and they're starting to double down, triple down on it actually. And it's fascinating to see because e-com brands, direct to consumer, those mom and pop shops that, for the longest, the retailers have kind of held their arms and legs to the ground, so to say, is, that doesn't exist anymore. There's so much
Yep.
opportunity, and you just have to be willing to try. Yes, it's the wild, wild west in some cases, but we have seen it over and over again that people are actually seeing a lot of success. And it goes back to what we've even talked about, like I said a few times on this episode, the creator economy and how to really win in the realm of social media in 2024, right? And that's what social commerce is now allowing people to do. So it's fascinating.
Well, I literally was going to say exactly what you just mentioned. I mean, it's been a couple months now, but when Instagram decreased the minimum follower requirements from 10,000 down to less than 1,000 for
Mhm.
Instagram stock when it initially was released, everything we're seeing is shifting, like you mentioned, to that creator mode, to the accessibility of small mom and pop people are going, or companies are going to be a lot more competitive than they used to
Yeah.
be. But the one platform that I am very interesting to see how it's going to compete in this space, because unlike what I've noticed with TikTok and Instagram, that is leaning more towards creators. Personally, what I've seen is that Meta over the past 18 months kind of went away from that. They kind of went to that pay to play market,
Right.
very expensive. If you were kind of that small mom and pop, the same $500 you were spending was getting you nowhere near what you were getting before. I'm curious to see if how Meta is going to react to that, because I've heard a lot of people divesting from Meta, for example, due to not only the audience conversation and things like that, but again, engagement, cost. A lot of those things are just way cheaper and higher conversion rates on TikTok and Instagram right now. So
Yeah,
I'm
for
curious
sure.
if Meta is going to lean a little bit more towards mom and pop, as you know, that's what it used to be.
That's
That's who
exactly
used to
right.
make the money off of Instagram or I'm sorry, off of Meta and things like that. It used to be the smaller companies and things like that.
100%. And I think you're right because what Facebook's doing is a little bit more in the realm of the algorithm, optimizing the campaigns, being able to really push that product to the most ideal buyer, right?
Right.
Versus with Instagram and TikTok, you're right, the creative, the context of the, people inside the creative itself, all of those play big factors versus where Meta is starting. And it's because Meta's matured, right? It's no longer that platform that people think about immediately when you're thinking about influencers or brand awareness, right? Like
Right.
everyone thinks about YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, etc. But Meta, where it still thrives, it's probably still the most powerful algorithm when it comes to the advertising world, right?
Yes.
Obviously, other programmatic and display algorithms, other social networks algorithms are getting more powerful. But when it comes to pure, like you said, pay to play, sorry, um,
They're,
Meta, there's no beating Meta, right? And what
right.
it's started to do, and we've talked about this as well, but creative is really the number one focus. It's started to get so good and what its tweaks it's doing when it comes to social commerce and even the algorithm. Like there's Advantage Plus campaigns when it comes to social commerce are dramatically powerful. Like we've really seen really good results with some of our partners in that area. But where we're seeing the biggest curve and the biggest impact is when it comes to the creative that's being used. And this is true on all the social platforms, whether it's paid, whether it's organic. It's you got to invest into creativity, right? The copy and the creative piece that resonate to a purchase has don't quote me on this exact figure, right? Most stats are made up anyway, but I believe it's around 80% those two factors have an impact from somebody making a purchase
Yeah.
versus not making a purchase. So it's like
Well,
you can't let the creative go to waste. You really have to think hard about it.
so I'm gonna take what you said to the next level, because I
Mhm.
think what you just said is actually the tactic that's caused this shift and this metric right here, and I think what I'm about to say is why TikTok and Instagram are winning at the pace that they're winning.
Right.
What you just talked about would make you focus on is the engagement aspect of it. If I have awesome, solid, dynamic, creative, that's going to increase my engagement. No matter what we define engagement by, likes, comments, conversions, shares, doesn't necessarily matter. But here's why I think that's important. What, unlike Meta, TikTok and Instagram, in my opinion, are leaning into the conversation of engagement, of true organic engagement. Not just can I find a person who's raising their hand and put an ad and find them and convert them and buy. What I feel like TikTok is doing very well and Instagram is leaning into it. For example, now they're pushing those longer reels and things like that. Is if I create or if I have a platform that has advertisers that and creators that are creating content that's so engaging, Koshal, that I sit on this phone and scroll for 10 minutes at a time,
Right.
I will eventually buy.
100%.
I will buy.
100%.
If that goes from 5 minutes a time to 10 minutes a time to next thing I know, I've been sitting scrolling on there for 30 minutes at a time. If I'm doing all of that and engagement is truly as organic as we know that it can be, that's going to ultimately lead to sales and conversions. And I think that's where TikTok commerce and Instagram ads with promo codes and things are starting to win, unlike Meta, even though they're adding in some of their commerce features, is because of that. I don't like to engage on Meta, bro.
Mm-hmm.
The 60%
Yeah.
of the stuff that I see are sponsored ads. They're not even my friends. 75% of the people I see on my feed aren't even people who I engage with. Half the time I'm like, how? I've never liked one of your posts. How am I seeing your post? Like Meta does not give me a very organic and good engagement. If anything, I just scroll. I don't even want to like to actually engage on Meta. I just scroll and kind of look at it. And I think that's where, from a commerce standpoint, that's where I think TikTok and Instagram has some really great potential over Meta this year. What do you think about all of that?
I do. And if you go really back to where Facebook wins, it's when it comes to education, high level brand, and lead generation now. Because, you're right, it has shifted, right? Now, I'm not saying that social commerce doesn't work. Like I said, for a lot of our
100%,
partners
100%.
and for there's always those anomalies, right? And there's still opportunity when it comes to that. But really where people are winning on Meta is by education, by building brand, by the community and the engagement, and taking almost what the brand has built to the next level, which is a personalized experience. And you're right, they're probably still sit alone. The audience itself of who utilizes Facebook mostly has shifted towards an older demographic. So you're right. When it comes to pure direct to consumer commerce, TikTok and Instagram are going to win. And going even back to the other platforms, Pinterest, Snapchat in its own right is doing a little bit of damage there, and even YouTube. There are other players that are doing a much better job. It's just Facebook itself is the behemoth where you don't want to miss out, especially on retargeting opportunities, because like I said, the algorithm itself is probably the most powerful. So that's where you want to win. And we're going to actually talk about first party data here in a little bit. If anything, if you're not running ads, if you're not using Facebook for any type of, business and revenue intent purposes, where you can win is its first party data, and how, as long as you're tracking the activities people are performing on your website and on your social, that will still give you intent into who your consumer may be or who your
Yep.
buyer may be. And I think that's still very, very valuable information at the end of the day.
Yep.
Yeah, but social commerce, I mean, it's like I said, most things ever last year sold on social. This year is going to be the biggest ever. It's not going to go away. There's even a few more points that we'll come back and talk to when it comes to social. But let's stop on TikTok Shop one more time, just because I want to talk about a little bit about what's happening in that realm. So first and foremost, we recently became official TikTok Shop marketing partners. It's a big push that TikTok is doing, but they really want to sign on these e-com brands, and they even have some unique incentives that I believe they change quarterly for these new shops that are getting registered and signed on into their platform.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit of a kickback on some of those initial sales if you're spending money on TikTok. So a lot of different opportunity there. But the most fascinating part about it is, yes, what it's allowing these small mom and pop shops and even these small e-com shops to do is what it's allowing those shops to leverage. And what I mean by that is TikTok is coming out with two very, very big aspects of shop, and they're technically already out. They're just starting to really push them a lot harder. One of them being the TikTok affiliate network and TikTok shop affiliate network, and how they're allowing different creators on TikTok who are so good at understanding the platform, natively creating content, being able to pick and choose different products that they'd like to promote and actually get a kickback out of it. So not only is it an
Yep.
incentive for the creator, it's also an incentive for the brand. It's like, hey, if you have people who really love the product and are advocates of it, you give them a little bit of reward or return, and they're more than happy to, push that, even
Right.
without you having to like engage like a real influencer engagement. And then on the flip side is the creator exchange, TikTok creator exchange. This one's a little bit more unique, and there's a bare point price minimum of, I think $20,000 or $25,000 that you have to be willing to invest. So maybe not for everybody, right? Not everybody has $20,000 laying around, but they themselves are working on a program that will allow you to leverage the best creators on TikTok and be able to start to push your brand, your services, your products that you're pushing as well. Like I said, not the cheapest option, but these are real life success stories of other brands leveraging these creators and being able to see an immediate impact. And they've now created their own program and are partnering with agencies like ourselves on pushing this program that allows these brands to start to see that immediate impact. Because we're going to talk about
Yep.
ROI in a second, but ROI is obviously what everybody is looking for when it comes to the social networks.
Well, as you know, it's the beautiful thing about what I love about that is two things. One of the great things about creating awesome content, when you're using when you're talking about user generated content or using influencers that you're paying for that or whatever you're talking about, is there needs to be a connection. And when you can find the right fit of the right content style or the right audience or influencer to partner with and things like that, you've seen how it can change literally businesses from night and day. And so one of the things I love about it though is that oftentimes we've worked with people who can't always find and get access to those very specific types of creators that they're looking for. This is going to allow you as agencies and as you as businesses and things like that to actually get involved and leverage some of those types of creators. And I think that's one of the biggest benefits is access to resources that I won't say historically were hoarded, but there were just things that were inaccessible before. And the accessibility of these things is really going to make social media and content creation and TikTok shop and all of this in 2024, just a very interesting and fast moving pace this year, man.
I agree. And what I would like to tell everybody is, even if you aren't ready to quite sell on TikTok yet, don't wait to get your shop registered. There is a process where you have to get it registered with TikTok, you get it approved, you have to set it up, obviously. So just don't wait. Like, even if you're not ready to start quite selling on there yet, at least do your little bit of due diligence, get
Yep.
everything set up. I mean, hell, even contact an agency like ours. We're more than happy to do, free TikTok shop consultations where we're at least able to talk about, what you should be doing without having to, spend a single dollar. So even if you're worried, you don't know where to start, there's a lot of resources
Definitely.
out there. At least gets your, check boxes checked, and let's make sure you're in a good position for, you never know, like I said, when the opportunity may present itself. So I encourage all owners, especially if you're selling a product, to at least get educated about TikTok shop and the different opportunities that exist there as well.
100%.
All right, so we talked about, all of the different social commerce, TikTok shop. I do think maybe in the future, especially as we're able to release more information about our official partnership, that we dive deeper into TikTok shop and, all of the different specific tactics and opportunities we're seeing there. But Instagram and their promo ads, Meta, we talked about all of its different commerce features. I think we're good on social commerce. I think this is the perfect time to start to talk about something we presented at the beginning of the year. We talked about all of the different trends and things that we saw in
Mhm.
2023, some of our initial thoughts for what we believe is going to be impactful in social media in 2024. So I wanted to bring that back up because we high level touched on it. We didn't dig too deep into some of these things, but some of those topics are of real concern for brands and marketers and businesses this year. And I do think now is the perfect time to start to think about some of the insights we've at least gathered since Q1 has transpired around some of these 2024 trends. Awesome. So let's go ahead and let's start talking about it. The first and biggest one, I alluded to this a little bit earlier as well, social media ROI. There's a big confusion in the world of marketing when it comes to social media ROI. And guess what? It's more important than ever now that people are actually questioning, hey, what is my social media ROI? What value is it bringing? What impact does it have? Am I even profitable? right? In a world where there's a lot of uncertainty around politics, there's a lot of uncertainty around the economy and what's happening. There's a lot of financial uncertainty in general with inflation and prices and everything that's happening. And we've seen it, right? Budgets have been dialed back. Brands are not spending as much. We've seen layoffs galore with some of the biggest companies out there. So there's a lot of fear in the landscape, right? A lot of people are concerned with what's happening. Where are my dollars going? Are we investing in the right mediums and channels? And obviously, social media comes under a lot of fire when people look at that, because historically it has been difficult to track direct ROI. And I'm going to give a good example about this later. But I want to talk about, just in general, one thing that I've been seeing and one thing that I've been hearing a lot is every time we're in a meeting room with executives, with business owners, we're sitting down, we're talking to them, the question comes up, right? How are we going to be able to showcase ROI? And a lot of the times, what brands and even social media directors, marketers are thinking as ROI versus what the consumer themselves are thinking, it's a little bit discorrelated, right? And what I mean by that, because that's a very confusing statement. ROI is very simple, your return on investment, right? So you would believe it's a very easy thing to understand. What I mean by that is the most important metric on social media right now is social media ROI. But for consumers, the most important use of social media is for entertainment, education, and value. The problem with that is those two things don't correlate, right? Direct bottom line and bringing value sometimes isn't a straight slope, right? It's a very crazy road. Sometimes it's left, right, up and down. It's not a straight line, right? So the problem that we're seeing is every brand is questioning ROI, and they're looking at their strategy with that number one question in front of mind. Hey, how is my strategy impacted or dictated by social media ROI? Versus what every consumer and what your audience is really looking for is a social media strategy focused on their experience and their interests at the end of the day. And so that's a big concern, right? We're over here talking about, hey, we got to present social media ROI. Consumers are talking about they don't want to be sold to, they hate seeing salesy content, they don't want to keep being pushed. And every single brand is coming to us and saying, hey, but I need to be able to see an ROI. So the elephant in the room is brands want to see one thing, consumers want to see one thing. The formula doesn't equal out to what it's hoping for. And at the end of the day, both things are failing. Brands are being questioned because they're not ultimately hitting their bottom line and their goals. Guess what? Social media is being questioned because everybody's like, are we just getting pushed shit that we don't want to see? Or are we getting pushed shit fake and spammy and the authentic means of what social media was meant to do initially, and people are questioning that. So I said a lot there. That's probably almost a lot just to digest in general. So I guess to simplify it all up, what are your high level thoughts when it comes to the question, how can we show social media ROI?
So I have two thoughts on it. I'm gonna use my experience in the past and then kind of answer the question a little bit. So my first thought of this is a conversation that reminds me. So my experience and background used to be in just digital marketing. So before I kind of specialized in social media, it was in all the world of digital and things like that. Cultural 10 years ago, we used to have this conversation in digital marketing versus your more traditional marketing that was your billboard and your print. And it was interesting because I will never forget it. When I first started working at a media group 10 years ago, all the companies were buying newspaper and buying billboard. And it was easy to sell that stuff, Coach. I could walk into a place. I was in Grand Rapids, Michigan. While I was selling the Grand Rapids Press, I'd walk into it and I'd say, the Grand Rapids Press on Sunday is going to have $150,000 eyes on it. Because of that, yada, yada, yada. You should get a full page ad, $7,000. Boom. End of conversation. People would buy it. $7,000 full page ad just because of the eyes. No conversations, no second guesses. We talk billboards. Same thing, you're going to be seeing like this many people, this many cars go by, all of these things. And the crazy thing is, conversations with clients and advertisers were never about, we talked about the demographics of the newspaper and demographics of people driving, but most of the time, Koshal, the majority of the people weren't their exact ideal client. The majority of the people weren't the segment where I was able to find the needle in the haystack. However, Koshal, When we would go to those same advertisers and say, hey, we would love to transition your conversation from print to digital
Hmm.
because we can track. You only want to sell to people who look just like Lorenzo or Kosho. I can find those people. Why waste all the eyes of all those other different types of people?
Right.
You would never believe how much harder it was to sell those conversations with the increased tracking and things like that. The reason I say that is because it reminds me of what we're going through kind of in social right now.
Hmm.
Whereas social is the thing that's first to cut. It's the thing that a lot of people, especially if you're not experienced, you don't even think about it with ROI. So we have people sometimes where I say, okay, what's your expected, what's our KPIs? What are we measuring here? They're like, I don't
Hmm.
know, increasing some followers,
Hmm.
managing my social. And I'm like, what does that mean? And this leads to the next thing that I've learned, and it's that we actually sometimes have to define it with our clients. And not necessarily always define it by telling them what ROI is, but having a conversation where we agree, where we say, how do we mutually define what ROI looks like? Let's have an
Right.
education about what that looks like. Let's talk about what eyes actually mean, what
Hmm.
eyes on your brand mean, and how eyes do have a trickle down effect that can translate to revenue and things like that. And so that's what I've learned that we've had to do in our space right here is number one, not shy away from that conversation. So that's the
100%.
first thing. The old salesperson to me, when I would get a client who's like, listen, man, I got $10,000 and all I care about is brand awareness. The old me was like, great, that's an easy one. Let's get
Yep.
that money. We can increase your brand awareness. But you know, just like I know, those clients don't last because what the hell is brand awareness?
Right.
Did you define that by website traffic? Is it organic website traffic? Is it direct website traffic? Is the amount of people who are searching your name? Are you expecting a lift over that month over month for brand awareness? How are we tracking? What
Hmm.
does that mean, client? So
Hmm.
even if we got you 10,000 followers on social media, great. What happens now? You
Right.
just got 10,000 followers? What's the engagement look like? Were you looking to sell something to them? Are you looking to turn that 10,000 into a community? And so that's the second thing that I've learned from ROI is oftentimes the best relationships we have are when we're able to have those conversations and define what ROI looks like and then have it and kind of work it from there. So those are kind of my thoughts on ROI. How do we define it? Yes, it's hard, but it's a conversation that social media and agencies, y'all, we cannot shy away from. It seems
100.
easy for it to do it because we will have people who throw those dollars. But Kosha, me and you have sat in a ton of hours of meetings. Who are the first people that leave? Who get cut from those budgets?
Yep. Social.
You do. You're the first
100%.
person who gets cut from that stuff.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm always thinking through the end in mind that there will be a time when we have to defend that spend.
100%.
How are we going to do it? What pixels are we putting in place? What are we tracking so that when we do have to have a conversation and we got 10,000 followers, what does that mean for the client? And that's the next step that I don't think that agencies always do. And full transparency, we don't always do the best stuff.
No, 100%. And it's hard. Like going back to what you said, it's not something easy. It is a difficult conversation sometimes to be had, but it's not the wrong question to ask. Going back to everything that I really even started off with, the reason we're even mentioning is it's a real conversation. It's the elephant in the room. And yes, you need to be proactive and you need to be optimistic about having that conversation. Because yes, there are ways, and like we're going to talk about first party data here in a second, it is important to talk about ROI. I get it, right? I'm a business owner at the end of the day. 1 + 1 = 2, right? Profits, or sorry, revenue minus expenses equals profits, right? I get that. So showcasing that ROI, making sure your business is thriving, making sure you can see the value and impact is a 100% legitimate question. And so I think it's very important that we start talking to you about it. But you're right. It's all about being able to have a transparent conversation on what does ROI mean for you, because ROI means a lot of different things all of the different time. And
So,
you think about it. Go ahead, go ahead. I'll actually let you go ahead.
you said something that I want to say because it was a note that I had, and literally before we switch subject and go too far down, I wanted to interrupt and say it. The other issue that people drop the ball on is they don't translate that ROI
Mm-hmm.
in the appropriate language of everybody who needs to have it.
100%.
How many times have we gotten suffered or lost a deal or lost a contract or something like that when we hit every objective that our point of contact told us to hit?
Right.
We never had a conversation about how those translated up from. We never had a conversation about how you asked us to get 10,000 followers and a 5% engagement rate.
And what
Because
the
we didn't say, what does that mean? Because we didn't say, okay, great, you're the marketing coordinator. What does the CFO think about that? But when we get that, what do they define as being success? What does your CEO define as being success from that? It's also the lack of translating those conversations to every appropriate person that's
Mhm.
also crossed up. Because we went into meetings and we're like, what do you mean? Look at the report. We hit
Literally. Yep.
above the KPIs that you told us. You told
Right.
us 10,000. We got 15,000. What do you mean we didn't do what we were supposed to do? Oh, well, success was
Mhm.
also blase, 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 blah.
100%.
So
That's real.
that's another missed opportunity that, again, we've had to learn that the hard way. But again, ROI means different people for everybody. So one tactic that we've done, just a little bit of advice, we started having a process where any KPIs and objectives that we establish in our strategy period, as you know, C-level leadership has to sign off on those.
Yep.
And the reason is that we want to prevent that. We want to prevent that if we have a marketing contact who says that these are the KPIs, those have to translate to executive leadership. And if we're not on the same page, well, we got to take a step back and say, okay, what are the objectives that translate for success across the board?
100%. And we even do that now quarterly also, because we
Yes.
set every engagement we get into, we're setting our quarterly goals. Social media is ever changing and so fast paced, we have to adapt them. And you're right, sometimes we reach these goals, sometimes we don't, but those goals have to adjust. Maybe right now you're focused on brand, maybe in the future you're focused on
Yep.
generation and conversions, right? So each time we're adjusting those goals, resetting those goals, we need to have multiple stakeholders in the room, all the way from our main point of contact all the way to the one who's signing off on the very final decision. So that's a good practice, honestly, for all businesses, especially if you're working with other businesses. Get the sign off, because you're right. For every person, it could mean something unique, and you need to be able to understand what's important for each person that you're ultimately talking to. And even going back to that whole social media ROI conversation, the thing that was super important to me as you were kind of explaining it, and I think you did a really good job of explaining to all of the audience that trajectory of marketing is evolving all the time, right? All the way from traditional flyers and billboards and things of the regular nature, to radio, to television, to print, to television, to
Yep.
social, etc., right? The biggest thing is, and I think this is very important, and I really want, and this is a message more so for marketers, more than anybody. We have a very bad habit of getting upset about the evolutions in marketing. And then we complain about the costs. And I think
Right.
as we're explaining that picture really for everybody of what's transpired and how it's happened, the analogy that stuck out to me is we as consumers are so okay with spending more money for improvements, whether it's technological improvements, efficiency improvements, convenience improvements, etc. Perfect example, right? We used to have a cell phone, very simple device. You flipped it, had buttons, and you were able to call people. Well, the iPhone came out, and guess what? Now we're all okay spending $1,000 for a piece of phone. But guess what? Because we really see the value in this piece of technology, the evolution of the phone. Another example, right? Let's take computers into play. We were
Mm-hmm.
so okay with spending, $200 with these big, bulky desktop
Mm-hmm.
computers in our house, that the laptop came out and it was $1,000, and we're so okay now buying these $1,000. I mean, my
Yep.
MacBook, for example, was like $2,500 when I bought it, right? So okay, I love it, best thing ever. It's happening in the landscape of VR now. The Apple Vision Pro is $3,500, does what your laptop does, and you're like, hey, I'm more than okay spending that. And obviously, a lot of people aren't, but people are okay with it. But answer me this: why are not people okay that CPMs on the most advanced technology when it comes to advertising and targeting, and as those costs tend to increase, they're not okay with that? Yet it's still cheaper than what it costs nowadays to spend on a multi-million-dollar commercial
Yeah.
production. They're okay doing that. And I don't think
And
there's an
then it
answer to
goes
that.
to
Yeah.
it, it goes to, again, part of it is education. Part of it is getting people to think a different way. I think about how when I first, so I sharpened my teeth in marketing and B2B digital marketing, actually, which was super unheard of when I first started doing it. Everybody was like, no, they do trade shows, they don't, B2B companies, and they don't have digital budgets and all of those different things. It was shifting the conversation, though.
Yeah.
They marketed 100%. How do you think they got to be the companies that they did? They just may not have called it marketing. They may not have called it some of these things. So it's oftentimes about how do I translate what we do and what we think into ways that our market and things like that understands. And it's oftentimes it's the companies and organizations who are able to do that win.
100%.
I'll give you another perfect example. When we were just at our conference last week and we were talking about how to present productized services and all of those different things and stuff like that, someone gave us a really good idea. And as he was giving us the idea, you and I were, me, you and Keith, and we were talking, and we were like, he gave us an idea that was the exact same thing that we do. All he did is
Literally.
change
Yeah.
the words. We
100%.
sat there and was like, oh, that's such a great idea. It's such a great idea. And literally we were like, bro, we do that. He just said the words differently. But
Right.
that was such a powerful lesson is that wording matters, verbiage matters. You can
100%.
say something in one way that triggers a completely different response than a completely different person. And you're communicating the same deliverables, the same message, the same everything else, but it's all in just the words that you use to do it. Changes the game. And I think that everyone's learning a little bit of that. I mean, again, we're learning some of that ourselves. Sometimes we've messed up or things haven't worked because we didn't say the right thing. It actually wasn't, the plan was right. The strategy was right. Everything was right. The wording was a little off.
Exactly. And
Jacked everything up.
all it takes is sometimes that small, subtle adjustment, and the impact is crazy different. So I
I'll
100%.
give you one last example. We're really starting to expound in what's called like agency search consulting. So we're starting to really reach out to some agencies. We really want to develop some great partnerships, especially being a niche market agency. I sent out some emails that was a little bit it was a little bit high level, kind of more general to these agency search consultants and things like that. My goal was that I wanted to be general, kind of throw out enough net to kind of capture. I didn't want to pigeonhole myself in. People immediately started responding like, no, not interested, don't want to meet this and this. And I'm like, this is kind of weird responses because all I'm doing is offering something that that this is what they do. Their clients want this type of stuff. They're not paying, there's no cost. I find it kind of weird. I went back and
Yeah.
looked at the email. It was all verbiage. I had to I literally resent the email. I was like, I'm so sorry if my last email miscommunicated my intent. This is what I was looking for. Spoke to the audience of people responding. Everybody responded back and was like, oh, yeah, we do that. If I didn't look at it and just change the verbiage, I would have been like, this failed. This
Right.
initiative didn't work. Why are we going after this? Nobody wants to work with us. No, verbiage. As soon as I
100.
switched up my verbiage, everybody's like, no, you're right. That is what we do. Let's meet, fill out this form. I got clients that we'd love to refer you to, yada, yada. So that matters a ton.
100%. Going back to what we talked about earlier, it's the creative is the how you say it, how you make people feel, what they see, how they interact with it. Those are the biggest variables to success. And sometimes
100%.
it's just trial and error. You got to just try a bunch of different things and see really what's working for your brand, your message, your what you're trying to resonate. All right, so I know we're running short.
Yeah,
We
what we
talked
gonna wrap up with
about
today?
yeah, we've talked a lot about some really good things today, and wanted to focus on finishing out the rest of these trends. I think we can cover them pretty quickly actually, and see if there's more room for anything else. But let's see. The next one that I had is, and we talked about this, and I think also talking about ROI, moving into this topic, first party data. It's a good segue. But first party data, and the really only thing that we don't have to focus too long on this topic, but I think we've talked about it one or two more times, and just really wanted to bring it back up again because this is really going to be the year I believe that it becomes really, really important that you have more so the technical aspects of this setup all figured out. Just because you don't want to miss out on this opportunity. Where in the browsers, where all of the privacy issues that the social platforms have been talking about, all of these changes have been coming, and it's getting harder and harder to track, especially with third-party data, right? So understanding that, focusing on first-party data, getting the information for yourself, being able to get it on your own and being able to utilize it in your own way is what's becoming more important. The good news is it's not a hard thing to do. The bad news is it is a process and a technical aspect to get set up. It's all about making sure you got your pixels right, you got your events right, you verified, your domains and your
Yeah,
websites. all about making sure you're tracking for the right conversions and the right actions and just doing good practice when it comes to that setup. And you should be able to take advantage and leverage it. But the biggest thing that I would really talk about when it comes to first party data is make sure you're preparing yourself to be ready for it if you're somebody who hasn't already started thinking about what your technical infrastructure and setup looks like. Even when it comes to the social platforms, you're relying
Yep.
very heavily on them. We're talking about the TikTok ban. Well, guess what? You have first party data, you can still win, even if TikTok or Facebook or Instagram or any of these platforms were going to get banned. You could still win if you have this first party data.
The only thing I'll add to that, because you are 100% right, we are seeing a rise. Actually, we've gotten a few companies that we've just started to have some initial conversations with. So it's been interesting as I've taken some deep dives. There is a rise in data collection companies and companies that are building their own DSPs because of this and different things like that. That is also becoming very, very interesting. So, yes, if you can collect your first party data, obviously that's always going to be best practice. You want to own that for multiple reasons,
Yeah.
especially, I mean, the situation that we're in right now. But we will continue to talk. There are the rise of some other data centers and things like that that are getting very customized, very cost efficient because of a few different things. So we will be talking about some other avenues. If you aren't at the place where you can collect, there are going to be avenues where you can at least buy and be able to incorporate said data, which will be a little bit more qualified than the historical third and second party data that was collected before.
Yeah, which actually speaks to a whole nother thing, which is if you're somebody who's great at collecting data, there's a whole business right now that you could probably put
Man, it's
together.
some serious. I'm talking about buku money that you
Yeah.
can be making right now. Very little work, and you can set yourself up for your generation right now in the data space.
Okay, a few last more things on the rise of 2024 trends, longer form content. We don't have to stick too long on this either. We've seen it. You even talked about it a little bit earlier.
I was
All
say, yeah,
the
Instagram
platforms.
just they're really pushing 60
Yep.
second minimum reels now. Everybody's going for engagement, engagement, engagement. That's the At the end of the day, that's what longer form content does.
Yep.
Engagement. At the end of the day, platforms want you to keep people on platform. They don't want you to take people off site, and they want people to engage. And as we know, longer form content does that. Again, just that simple. It keeps you there. It encourages more than just a simple like, yada yada.
Yep. Yep. If I had to say something, it would be, it was photos and graphics. Videos took over. Video was king. Short form video took over. Short form video is king. I won't quite say long form video is king and is going to completely take the landscape. Video in its right will still obviously own it, but there's a lot of advantages and opportunities now
Oh
to
yeah.
longer form content than ever before. So I would start experimenting with it for sure.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Awesome.
One thing that is super interesting, I actually just saw Target
Hmm.
in retail just launched theirs, but gated content and subscriptions. This is something we are not only about to start to see in social media. Everybody's talked about Facebook having a paid version for years now. A lot of different things that are coming down. They're even doing subscription based to retail. Target and Walmart are two of the biggest ones that are looking at it right now. Target just launched their subscription plan, which I think gives you access to like self checkout. So like now I think Walmart is also testing it, where in order to use self checkout, you have to actually pay for a subscription, which
Hmm.
I just think is crazy. But yeah, gated content and subscription, social media, retail, commerce, that is a trend we are absolutely going to be seeing in 2024, y'all.
100%. You already talked about it, right? From the biggest brands in the world to
Mm-hmm.
our most famous, mentor, influencer, whoever it is that people may look up to people in your own community and neighborhood, right? Even the fact that the social platforms have now started to allow for subscription-based, release to content, right? Just
Yep.
I think Instagram did it in a very simple way initially, if you think about it. And I don't know if enough brands took advantage of it then, but when they released the friends only feature, or like your most authentic fans
Yep.
only
Yep.
feature
Yep.
that you could send specific content to them. I thought that was crazy in a winner, right? Now it's becoming such a thing that people are willing to even pay for it, right? You're willing to pay for
Yes.
this type of
That's crazy to
insight,
me.
or this insider knowledge, right? Or this insider experience, even in the case of Target and Walmart. So from the world's biggest brands to even your most regular person that you look up for when you go to YouTube, this trend of gated content and being able to provide people with a slightly more entertainment or value aspect
Yep.
is what I believe is going to separate people. The internet is there, right? You can get pretty much anything you're looking for at any given time from endless resources and from endless people. How you now distinguish that unique approach to the subscription and gated content, and even those that are willing to now pay for it, that's if you can come up with some really good strategies and tactics in that area, I believe that's going to be one of the biggest trends this year that really pushes some brands forward.
Agree, brother. I agree.
Cool. And last one, and I think honestly for our next episode, we'll even focus on the first portion of the segment on this
Definitely.
specific topic because I think it's louder than ever. And, we've even talked about this a few times, but I think it's only becoming more and more prevalent. Authenticity when it comes to the world of AI. And I know you got
Oh,
a lot of
yeah.
thoughts, brother. I got a lot of thoughts. And like I said, I think we'll have a pretty solid episode. We'll kick it off with this topic. But for the time being, would love to hear all of y'all's thoughts in the questions, drop some comments. What are y'all's thoughts around AI and the content that it's putting out and how people are feeling about it, how brands can be authentic when it comes to utilizing AI? We're going to have a deep session when it comes to it. But it's a scary topic, right? What's real,
It
what's
is.
not? It's going to be a fun one.
It is. And we'll keep talking about it. We'll be talking about AI, authenticity, all of that. Y'all, we appreciate your time. As Social said, we can't wait to see your feedbacks, comments. Please subscribe. Please share. Stay tuned for some other awesome guests that we have lined up. And without further ado, this will wrap up episode 22 of Seriously Social, y'all. Can't wait to see y'all next week.